Hey you folks, Matty here with another video. Today's topic, getting your song parts to blend together like the frozen banana in your song's tropical smoothie. But seriously, today we're going to help you make professional song transitions between the different parts of your song. We'll take your song from this to this. Can you hear the difference? Can you feel the emotions? I know I can. And pretty soon you'll have the power to craft these seamless transitions yourself. Let's hop in. If you don't think song transitions are important, well, they are. An amateur might not worry about how different parts of the verse meshes into the chorus or how the chorus blends into the bridge, but trust me, they're important. A smooth transition paves the way towards professionalism. But more than that, it just sounds way better. Would you rather have your listeners identify the blocks of MIDI you use to create the song, or would you rather have them get lost in the emotionality? Good transitions make any changes seamless and keep the listener hooked. So hopefully now you're on board with the transition train. But now let's discover how to make them. Here are 5 ways I use to make seamless transitions. By the way, I saved my favorite one for last, so stick around so you can see that one. Tip number 1, play with dynamics. Dynamics greatly impact the emotions of a song. A quiet, intimate whisper vocal is sure to bring up different feelings than a loud, screaming rock anthem. And you can use this to your advantage. If you know that your chorus is going to be filled with energy and instruments, don't just all of a sudden lead into that. Sometimes it's better to gradually build that energy and dynamics as the song progresses. Take a look at this example. As the chorus comes, more instruments are getting added. Right where it's getting louder. Where we are. Makes that impact so much more satisfying. At the beginning of this, there's hardly anything going on. That's the whole point. We're going from a spot of really quiet and gradually building up to that chorus to take the listeners on a journey. This prepares the listeners for what's to come and makes it oh so satisfying when it finally drops. On the other hand, you may choose to contrast the song parts even more by making the transition abrupt and sudden. But you should really consider these other tips I'll share before making a decision. Tip number 2, use some reverb. It's a tale as old as time. You've got one part with a bunch of instruments and the next part with only a few. How can you better combine the two? Well, I'll tell you. You hear those rhymes? The key is reverb. At the end of a song section, we can automate reverb to fill in the gap between our parts a bit better. With a long reverb tail, the bass suddenly doesn't just die out, but slowly fades as the rest of the instruments start to take over. Think of reverb as the glue holding the paper mache creation together. Without it, you just have a big mess and a bunch of newspaper. Let me show you it in action. Take a listen to this transition part before, and then we'll add reverb and we'll compare it to after. So this is before. I hope you know the world fades away. It's not bad, but we can make this more seamless if we add some reverb to that bass part like I mentioned earlier. So we'll go into our bass here. I believe this is it. So we found the bass part. Let's go into here. We're going to add reverb directly onto the track itself. We're going to put the wet all the way down to 0. I'm going to put the length up a bit as well. And we'll just use this preset and see how it sounds. Click A on our keyboard. We'll click on Space Designer like we just did. And we'll go to Output Wet. We're going to put one automation node here, another here, and we'll drag this up so that we can start to hear it more as the song progresses. Check this out. I really like that, but I want to make this effect more prominent so that you guys can hear it over on the YouTube side of things. Ancient Church, that's got to be a long one. 5 seconds, yeah, that's for sure long. Our automation should have stayed the same, but let's hear what it sounds like. Cool. Let's hear that in the mix of the song. You'll hear that it's going to transition a bit better. I hope you know the world fades away. I think that bass actually has too much reverb. I'm gonna turn that down. I hope you know the world fades away. Nice. Very subtle, but that's melting together a little bit better than it was before, all thanks to reverb. Let's move on to tip number 3. Tip number 3 is to incorporate crashes, risers, and reverses. Crashes, risers, and reverses all help to build on those important emotions of the listener. A well-placed crash on the downbeat of an energetic chorus can hook the listener in and give the start much more impact and power. Add a riser beforehand to build the tension before the drop. And finally, a reverse sound can lead into the chorus in a creative but entrancing way. Let me show you it in action. Hear that riser in the background?
Right where we are, where we are.
Hear that crash on beat 1. That's all putting things together. Let me show you how to make a reverse sound to get some really interesting effects. I'm actually going to make this reverse right between these two sections so we can better meld these two together. To do this, I'm going to reverse a specific vocal from this chorus. This is my main vox here, and I'm going to duplicate this track, and I'm going to use my marquee tool to click and drag this particular sound right here out. Before we reverse it though, we want to add some reverb on the track specifically. So we'll go back into Space Designer, we'll go into Wet, and we'll turn this up quite a bit. We're also going to change our preset to something a little bit larger. Let's go into Rooms, let's go into Clean Room, let's go into 2.28, that sounds good to me. So we're actually going to bounce that down with that reverb on it. It's going to create a new track with the reverb tail that we just made. We'll extend this out as much as we can because there's going to be some information here from the reverb that we just can't see in the waveform. Then we'll click on this, we'll go on File, Functions, Reverse, and all of a sudden our waveform is reverse. Let's take a listen to what this sounds like just in the reverse. Nice. So I'm going to just cut it off a little bit shorter so that's a little bit more abrupt, but it's sounding good. We'll put this right before this chorus. We'll also take the gain on this and turn it up a little bit so we can hear it a bit better. Go into gain here, turn this up, and let's hear what this sounds like.
I hope you know the world fades.
Now what this is missing is that same reverb that we had before. We're going to want to add that back in. So I'll open up my mixer, I'll find the track I have selected, and I'm going to drag that reverb over to this new track so that we get that same effect that we had before. It's sounding a bit too dry for my liking. So here we go. There you go. And there's a quick reverse vocal swell to help bridge the gap even more between these parts.
I hope you know the world fades away.
It's really subtle, but it's giving that extra characteristic to lead you in. All of those can add some serious impact to your sound, but they're still not my favorite way. Stick around for number 5 to see the best way, my favorite way, of making seamless transitions. Tip number 4. Tip number 4 is to add drum fills. A song transition list would just be incomplete without the granddaddy of all transitions, the legendary drum fill. The drums keep the beat in the song flowing, and when they alter the course to perform a few rolls on the snare drum, people sense a change in the winds. A classic drum fill helps distinguish between two different sections. They can build up the energy or bring it down. They are an absolutely vital tool to helping keep the transition effective and seamless. Let me show you how. All right, so I'm hearing a little tom fill in my head that's going to really bring this transition that we've been working on between the verse and the pre-chorus together. So I'm going to record the idea I have in my head on this, and then I'll use some adjustments to add it.
Never trade. I hope you know the world fades.
Really subtle, but I'm just adding 3 tom hits, kind of a triplet type sound on the offbeats just so you can hear it.
I hope you know the
Quantize those, and we're also going to add some serious amount of reverb to this part right here.
I hope you know the I hope you know the world fades. I hope you know the world.
This is a little bit too loud for my liking. I kind of want them more subtle, so I'll turn the velocity down.
I hope you know the.
I'm also going to add this acoustic drum kit. I know that it has a ride cymbal right at the end here, so I'm going to add that. Oh, what a good click. First try. I'm a pro. So this is what we have with this drum kit now in this little fill that we have.
I hope you know the world fades away.
Notice how that drum fill helps to bring it together. The slowing down of the toms really helps the slowdown of the rest of the song. We sense that slowdown in the toms, we hear something different in the drums, and we can sense that new part is coming. It's exactly what I'm going for. All right, on to tip number 5, my favorite tip, and it's use pauses. This sounds simple, and it is, but it keeps people coming back for more and more and more and more. In a song, there's almost nothing more gripping than the sound of silence. And if we can really build up a listener's attention, then drop out all the instruments, even just for a split second. When we finally bring them back in, we've got something that feels so satisfying. This is my favorite transition to use, but I do warn to use it sparingly. It's really cool to have instruments drop out for a beat or two, but if you do it too long, the listener will be long gone. This technique also works best, in my opinion, when the vocal line can pick up some of the silence and continue singing over it. It emphasizes the vocals and prepares people to want more. Here's how I did it in this song. You probably already noticed it before, but let me point it out again. Going back up to the chorus, I dropped out all of the instruments before finally getting to the drop.
From right where we where we are.
Right, that voice is filling that gap. That's like the main thing that you're focused on, the line where we are, but everything else drops out.
From right where we are, where we are.
And then when it finally drops, it's that much more impactful, that much more emotionally charged. I'm telling you, you'd be surprised how many songs drop out instruments like that and then introduce them for even more of a big impact when it comes to the chorus or the drop or whatever part song transition they're going for. And dang, that song is sounding a bit better after adding some of those song transitions, and the parts are coming together a little bit more seamlessly. Song transitions are an often overlooked part of the song production process, but getting it right makes the final product so much better. And notice I didn't make drastic changes. These are subtle things that all add up to a big end result. You don't necessarily need to use any one of these aforementioned tips between every song part, but you should start thinking about incorporating some of them into your workflow. Your mixes, your listeners, and even your pet cat will undoubtedly thank you. Make sure to subscribe for more production content like this. See you in the next one.